So the first one here hits close to home for me. In the 2019 draft, with the 20th pick, my Celtics selected Matisse Thybulle and then traded him to the Sixers. But that's not actually the one that has me most upset. The real heartbreaker is that Brandon Clarke was picked one selection later, and he would have been perfect for the roster they have. Another athletic wing who can defend, play in transition, make open shots, and I could even picture Brad Stevens playing him at center some. I mean, Daniel Tice plays center and he's 6'8". But instead, the Celtics ended up with, well, a whole bunch of guys out of the 2019 draft that I don't really love, between Grant Williams and Carson Edwards and whoever else. It would have been so much better if Brandon Clarke was there. I'm just picturing how awesome it would be to picture the next 10 years of my favorite basketball team having Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Brandon Clarke. That would be pretty damn cool. Just to recap Brandon Clarke's percentages because I love them so much. In the restricted area, he shot 74%. In the paint, but outside the restricted area, he shot 58%. And from three, he shot 36%. And I assume he's going to keep getting better at those. The Grizzlies got themselves a really good player, and my Celtics were that close from having him instead. To be fair, I could have picked a whole bunch of teams for Brandon Clarke, but I just decided to pick my Celtics because I felt like hurting a little bit more, which is sometimes fun as a sports fan, let's be honest. Next up, we move to the 2017 draft to talk about a team that I have been enamored with for years, the Portland Trail Blazers. I love Damian Lillard. I don't love the front office because of how safe they play it, just shuffling around role players every season rather than making any real trades. Although I will give them credit for the Nurkic move. Anyway, they had the 15th pick in the 2017 draft. They selected Justin Jackson, who they then traded for Zach Collins. And I think Zach Collins has potential, but if I'm honest, I'm not super high on the guy at this point. With the 19th pick in that draft, the Atlanta Hawks selected John Collins. Imagine John Collins on the Trailblazers right now, getting screens from Damian Lillard, catching lobs from Dame. If defenses decided to trap Dame as they do so much right now, he could just throw it to Collins on the short roll and he could make a play going to the basket. Pretty much everything that I'm saying about Lillard could apply to CJ as well. I mean, Collins would bring so much more variety to the Blazers offense. He is the exact type of guy that they have needed for so long, rather than Aminu, who sometimes could make an open three, or Mo Harkless, or it's the same thing, or, I mean, you know, Carmelo was pretty okay for them, but just Collins and his finishing around the basket and all that, it would be so good. Now, could you argue that the spacing with Collins and Nurkic could potentially be not awesome? I mean, maybe, but the talent would certainly be better than what they've had. And another thing with Portland is that they've been really good at being a good defensive team while not having a lot of really good defensive players. I say that they were a horrible defensive team this previous season, but I feel like with the progress that Collins has made as a defender, even if I don't think he's a good one yet, I do think they could have made that work with him. And I think he would have made them a lot better if they selected him in 2017. Okay, so now our final three underrated NBA draft what-ifs all come from the same draft, the 2018 draft. The first one comes from the Orlando Magic. They selected Mo Bamba with the 6th pick, thinking that he could be a defensive specialist. I mean, he's got the super long wingspan. He's improved on his jump shot, so he can give you a little bit more on that side of the floor. But throughout his first 2 years, Mo Bamba has been a backup big man. I guess they didn't foresee Vucevic getting better. I know some people want them to trade Vucevic. I don't agree. I think without his offense over the past 2 seasons, they would have been the worst team in the league, even if I don't think Vucevic is that great of a player. But anyway, Mo has been a backup big so far. And what has Orlando needed? They've needed perimeter scoring. They've needed a guy who can break down defenders off the dribble. They need more shooting. And the guy who was selected with the 8th pick in the 2018 draft, 2 picks after Mo Bamba, could have provided a lot of that, and that guy is Colin Sexton. Now, maybe you're not the biggest fan of Sexton. I mean, his percentages at times have not been great, and his playmaking has sometimes not looked awesome, and his defense is bad. But I think under Steve Clifford, a lot of that could have been cleaned up, because Clifford to me is a pretty good fundamental coach who teaches you how to not beat yourself, basically. I mean, the Magic are consistently at the top of the league and, not turning the ball over, not fouling, controlling defensive glass. And I think he really could have helped Sexton, and I think Sexton could have really helped them. I mean, you picture a starting five the last couple years that features Sexton, Fournier, and Vucevic, 3 guys who can shoot from outside, and I think Orlando's offense would have been looking a lot better. And you could say, yeah, well, their defense wouldn't be as good. I mean, I don't agree. I mean, they've managed to be very good defensively without Mo Bamba being the reason for that. I mean, in 2019, they were 8th in defensive rating, and then this season they were 10th. So yeah, the next one, remember, all the rest of these are in the 2018 draft. We moved just a few picks lower. The New York Knicks at number 9. You knew the Knicks were going to pop up in here at some point, probably because they're in the thumbnail. I haven't decided yet. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was selected number 11. Kevin Knox was selected number 9. You can pretty much do the math on that one. The Knicks have needed a point guard. The one thing you could say is if Shai had been drafted to the Knicks, he would not develop as well, because the spacing wouldn't be as good and there would be more turmoil behind the scenes, and I do understand that. But given how good Shai has looked, I mean, the guy averaged 20 points a game this season, I think he would have figured it out. I'm going to put on my tinfoil hat for a moment. If the Knicks had drafted Shai in the 2018 draft, would Porzingis still be on the team? Imagine Shai gets drafted to the Knicks, he's playing really well, and then in January of 2019, Porzingis does not ask for a trade out of New York. I'm probably going too far with that one, but you never know. The last one, again, the 2018 draft, is centered around the Los Angeles Clippers, who of course did end up getting Shai, and then we all know what ended up happening. So, number 13, they selected Jerome Robinson, who has not done much in the NBA. The 14th pick was Michael Porter Jr. We remember Steve Clifford was really mad that his scouts or whoever said that MPJ wasn't going to be good, and that MPJ was making some shots against them in that round 2 series that they lost. So what if the Clippers had just drafted Michael Porter Jr.? Would have given them another shot maker when they needed it? Yeah, MPJ defensively didn't look awesome in the playoffs, but would I give him a better chance than I would Lou Williams of holding up defensively against, maybe they still run into Denver in this new scenario? Probably, just because of the size. But the other thing it would do is, let's say the same thing happens, the Clippers' disappointing round 2 finish. MPJ would be a really good trade chip if they were just that all in. Hell, maybe in this new scenario, MPJ just ends up getting traded for Paul George, I don't know. And if that's the case, then Michael Porter Jr. would be in OKC right now. I don't totally know, but I do know that the Clippers, they missed that one. So yeah, that's it. 5 underrated draft things. Could probably do another one of these, maybe a few more. I'm not going to do it tomorrow or anything, but eventually.